So first of all, there's a diverse definition of spirituality and there's many religions. And so for some providers, they may not have their own connection to spirituality. And so they may not, if it's not important in their own life, there is kind of this counter transference to clients. Well, if it's not important to me and if it's not a value in my life, then there's no need for me to bring it up with my clients, which is not the case. Simply because it's not important in a clinician's life, that does not excuse us from realizing that there may be value for some of our clients. Provider bias due to different worldviews. So this may result in a failure to value and embrace different perspectives. So if a therapist has certain strong, their own religious, spiritual beliefs, they may not want to be hearing about what their clients' different beliefs are. And so that definitely indicates a bias. Lack of culturally responsive behaviors. So relying too much on Western medical models to inform treatment, right? What is the problem? What's the diagnosis? What's the treatment? What's the treatment plan? Client should follow through with the treatment plan, and then we're all good, right? That's kind of the medical model. If we look at other models, if we look at, for example, the existential model, if we look at person-centered care, if we look at solution-focused therapy, if we look at motivational interviewing, if we look at all of these different modalities and theories and philosophies we have, we realize that there's an important aspect, as we've been talking about, of life, in addition to somebody's problems and symptoms and diagnosis and treatment plan. But if a provider is not culturally responsive, then they're going to be relying just on fixing the client, the pathology, the diagnosis, and they're not going to be exploring aspects of that person with regard to their faith. Countertransference due to negative experiences. This, I think, can be potentially a common one for clinicians when a clinician has had negative experiences with religion in their life or any aspect of faith. And now, as I just mentioned a minute ago, this cuts them off from having any dialogue, conversation, openness with clients around faith. Lack of training. You heard that mentioned in the videos, and I think some of you echoed that in addition to me when I said, there's a lot of students, counseling students do not get a lot of training on this, and it's not often a focus postgraduate. The focus is on learning diagnosis, learning theory, learning interventions, dealing with crisis. Those are the things that often our focus is clinically once we graduate. It's not on really enhancing our ability to feel confident to discuss faith with clients. Lack of institutional support. So this is really interesting. I don't know if any of you have any experiences where you've been in institutions or organizations where it's not encouraged, and in fact, maybe it's prohibited. I know when I've done this training before, I've had people in the audience that have said, yeah, I currently work in an organization where we are prohibited from talking about faith. And so sometimes this is the case where it's not the clinician, it is, it's this mandate perhaps, or this it's not culturally acceptable within the organization or supported. Fear of not being able to discern healthy versus unhealthy spirituality and the consequences of making errors. I think this goes back to that lack of training when clinicians, when we were talking earlier about spiritual struggles and spiritual wellness, if a clinician is not feeling confident in assessing that within a client, they're like, well, I'm just going to kind of skip over that. Viewed as another skill set that one has to add on, right? And I think I just want to validate there's so much that we have to learn as therapists, clinically, research-wise, ethically, culturally. And there's so many things that we have to learn. And it's like, this is one more thing that I have to incorporate. And so sometimes people just feel so overwhelmed that they're like, I can't add this into the assessment. I can't add this into the dialogue. And then finally, unfamiliar with one's own spirituality and spiritual practices. So somebody that is disconnected, somebody that is has a low level of familiarity, comfort with their own connection with the bigger world, faith, etc., that may preclude them from incorporating it into practice. But Richards and Bergen in 2000 proposed these 4 areas of competence in religious and spiritual diversity. So let's take a look at these. Number 1, religious diversity is a cultural fact, and most mental health professionals will encounter it in their practice. Also, clinicians will have more credibility and trust with religious clients, leaders, and communities if they obtain training and competency in religious and spiritual diversity. So by you all being here in this training, this is adding to your competency in this area and establishes you as somebody that is able to appropriately integrate conversations around faith with your clients. 3, psychotherapists have an ethical obligation to obtain competency in religious and spiritual diversity. And then finally, competency in religious diversity may help therapists understand how to more fully access the healing resources in religious communities to assist their clients. So there can be a tremendous amount of benefit of not only you learning from the client about their belief and faith, but also learning about the communities, the faith community, and the resources that are available there potentially to your for your clients.